Hey everybody, my name is Richie Proud. As you heard, I'm an executive for Curaleaf, one of the largest cannabis companies in the United States. A little bit about my background. I started most of my career inside of the executive retail ranks of apparel industry. I spent 11 years with Abercrombie and Fitch, leading the Hollister and the kids male knits teams before transitioning into the financial area of the world, ultimately leading the Abercrombie and Fitch female planning umbrella. I led planning, allocation, and global procurement for Value City Furniture before moving up to Montreal, Quebec, Canada to lead planning, allocation, and regional strategy for a Canadian retailer called Group Dynamite, managing two brands, Garage and Dynamite. Before transitioning into the cannabis space, where I now work for Curaleaf, leading the planning and inventory teams for one of the largest regions within the Curaleaf umbrella. I also serve as the executive in residence for Logility, one of the premier planning software companies in the United States. So wanted to start a little bit talking about delivering customer expectations, right? It's an exceptionally difficult task for companies in a normal business environment because the measures of success are always evolving, but changes are taking place gradually over time, right? This slow movement forward, it allows companies to analyze groups of consumers by numerous predictive measures, right? We have localization, we have economic output, we have attachment rates, we have AURs and cart sizes. And while it's an imperfect science, the ability to deliver an exceptional customer experience really begins with this journey that involves understanding your consumer in all those different ways, right? And that's a top priority for many companies around the world. And now when you add in disruptive measures and disruptive causes, it certainly starts to show why predictive analytics are very important to everything that we do. Now, as consumers, our daily life experiences shape our perceptions around literally everything that we expect out of the brands that we interact with. And there are some very common expectations that customers have that have been formed over years of interacting with brands. So on the screen here, you see a couple of these, which are pretty standard throughout most of the industries that we work with inside of the retail. The first you see is speed. Well, there are two things that come to mind when we talk about speed, right? The first is how quickly is this product going to arrive to me? It's a very personal interaction of I want my materials as quickly as possible. And there was a time where we were okay with 2 to 3 weeks delivery, but then you experience something faster. And then as more people experience the delivery timings improving, your expectations adjusted. Then you became okay with 7 to 10 days. And then it became 3 to 5 days. And then it became 2 days. And now if you live in an urban environment, there's a likelihood that you have the opportunity to receive products within 2 hours. And so the gradual change of delivery expectations has adjusted what we expect out of companies. Well, when you take a brick and mortar environment and now you shift to a digital environment, the second element of speed is how quickly can we interact with web pages? How many of you are okay if you have to wait 30 seconds for a web page? Right? Nobody. 15 seconds? 10 seconds? In 2010, Google was publishing YouTube videos that articulated they expect 0.5 seconds for a web page to load. Today, 50% of consumers are going to bail on a web page if it doesn't load within 2 seconds. Speed definitely matters. The second is convenience. So when we think of convenience, there's a couple elements that really relate to how easy is it for me to interact with your brand? Are you making it easy for me to walk around your store, to shop for products, to check out inside of a store? And from a digital platform, it's, are you making it easy for me to navigate the web page? Are you making it easy for me to find what I'm looking for? Are you making it easy for me to go from navigation all the way through to checkout and to purchase? This is the evolution of convenience. When you look at personalization and customization, this has changed dramatically over time as the result of predictive analytics. It's certainly making the game more competitive for all of us. Personalization is so much more than can you take my initials and engrave them on a product? It's this personalized customer experience. It's using machine learning capabilities to understand my buying habits, to understand the emails that I'm more likely to open, to understand how I'm hovering on websites, to understand what I'm most likely to put into my cart. These results have really been produced by consumer research over time. We know that as personalization is involved, your likelihood to become a repeat customer of a brand goes up. But then there's brand values. Customers have not always cared about sustainability. but today they do. Customers have not always cared about where a product is made. Customers have not always cared about environmental policies, but today they do. Customers haven't always cared about brands taking social stances or political stances, but customers care for these things now. And then new on the list is health and safety, and we'll cover this in a minute, but each of these expectations fall within a normal consideration set of consumers. And so what happens when disruptions take place? Well, disruptions can be big and disruptions can be small, and they take place in all different shapes or sizes. But when you think about smaller disruptions, these disruptions force actions. A new idea enters the marketplace, it gains traction over time, and companies attempt to copy it. Some succeed, don't succeed. But for the most part, there's lasting impacts, right? How many of you have heard of the brand Inditex? They're the parent company of Zara, $75 billion retail business. They are essentially the founders of fast fashion. When we talk about fast fashion in the apparel industry, what we're talking about is normal brands that are interpreting runway shows and high-end fashion that are making it more affordable. And they're making it in a time frame that allows it to get to a consumer in a much faster way. Well, Zara's success is really identified by two things. Like, number one, they have an amazing integrated vertical platform. It allows them to average normal delivery times that might go from conception all the way to delivery within 4 to 5 weeks. Well, you know, most companies are taking in the retail section 14 plus weeks of total production for apparel. And the second is that Zara does not release a substantial portion of inventory. They only release a small number of units that are designed to make it a buy it now mentality with their overall consumer base. So Zara's two actions of speed and forcing demand has really changed our expectations behind fast fashion. Without Zara, you don't have H&M, you don't have Topshop, you don't have Primark, you don't have Uniqlo. Some disruptions change entire industry standards. On February 2nd, 2005, Amazon announced a new program that was going to be entering into their suite of offerings. A delivery service that, if you signed up, would get you products within 2 days. Enter Amazon Prime into the marketplace. And today, there's over 100 million of our closest friends that utilize Prime on a regular basis, paying them a subscription service of over $100. Well, 15 years ago, this was a game changer. No one was offering this kind of convenience to the customers. And if you look at where 2020 has taken Amazon, there's so many different ways that they have disrupted the business over time. Transportation and logistics, groceries, video streaming, the creation of their own branded products with Amazon Basics, their cloud servicing technology. You know, this one company has disrupted so many industries in so many ways and will continue to do so. And then you have some disruptions that change the world. The Great Recession of 2008 and 2009 really started in the United States as a chain reaction of financial markets that really crippled economies around the world. Well, from a retail perspective, inventory started to pile up. And then we started to get into heavy discounting, but customers weren't going into stores as frequently as they were in the past. Well, because customers weren't going into stores and the inventory started to increase, you started to actually see the shift to a heavier promotional environment and then into the digital environment. And so with this shift, what we have seen over time is online services and sales represented 5% of the global economy back in this 2008, 2009 time period. Well, today, the online service market is almost 20% of overall total retail sales, right? This event changed the way that we shop forever. So now you enter the year 2020, right? It's this year of rapid change. Simon Sinek, he's the author of Start With Why, which is a tremendous book for those of you who haven't read it yet. He shared a perspective on a podcast recently that really resonates with me. And it's really important given the context of the time to which we're living in. And it was about how are companies navigating and enduring what's taking place for right now and who is positioned to do well and not do well. And one of the things that he said was, the companies that are struggling to pivot are the ones that are trying to do what they have always done, right? But the companies that have pivoted well are the ones that take the playbook, they throw it out the window, and what they say is, we're going to act as a startup. If we could do anything that we wanted to do and we could start over, how would we run our businesses? Those are the companies that you've seen really succeed over these past 7 months in this time of disruption in 2020. And so different companies have taken different approaches as it relates to the way that they manage their business. But if you're from a retail perspective, if you poll most retail experts, what we would say is that 2020 has really accelerated many things that we expect to have happened already or are already happening. Right? We see reduced inventory levels taking place across the board. There are numerous stores that are closing. There's a higher focus on strategy. There's reduced bets on promotional activity. And so when you put all of this together, there is a real world where in the end of 2020 going into 2021, companies are able to reduce their sales levels, they reduce their inventory levels, they improve their margin metrics, and they actually come out margin positive on the balance sheet. There's a world where companies throw out their playbook and they start over. They start over acting new. And in fact, 2020, the second quarter has looked a little similar to this because you've seen this disruption take place where the share of wallet has transformed over time. Travel, hospitality, apparel, these are all industries that are trending below their overall normals for how sales should be experiencing at this time period. But home renovations, outdoor experiences, electronics, these are all surging to new levels. And because of all of this new elements, you see the share of wallet that's changing, and you see the rise of new businesses that are taking place in the marketplace. Well, one of the first pictures that you see is of a cannabis cultivation center on the screen. This industry has seen a dramatic rise in business throughout 2020. As a result of servicing a large population of medical patients, many states in the United States deemed cannabis to be an essential business as state lockdowns were taking place across the country. Well, this allowed cannabis dispensaries to continue to operate in this environment, to continue to hire new employees, and to continue to innovate new ways to interact with consumers in a socially distant way. So aside from continuing to provide medical cannabis to patients across the United States, the cannabis industry has been able to contribute significant tax revenue to many of the state budgets that are sorely in need of fiscal infusions in the economic downfall of the United States right now. One of the second pictures you see is something that says work from home. Right? As companies started to realize that the productivity of their employees remained at similar levels with a work from home environment versus being in an office, consumer spending started to shift. That consumer spending started to shift in terms of office equipment, in terms of furniture, standing desks, supplies, electronics, like all of these industries skyrocketed and remain currently at really high levels. Furniture companies today are reporting record sales for all of their products, but if you walk into many furniture stores, we aren't able to procure the product that we want because those deliveries were impacted largely by what took place in the first and second quarter of 2020. The third picture you see is the growing industry of personal protection equipment. We talked earlier about one of the common expectations, and this is one of the newest entries into the market, which is health and safety. Consumer expectations around health and safety has seen a shift that don't compare really to any other industry over time. In January of 2020, how many of you were carrying around face masks or carrying around Lysol wipes or utilizing hand sanitizers after a visit to a grocery store? But today, these are common practices. Many of us have a personal selection of face masks ready to go in our mode of transportation because we just need to be ready for the rules and regulations that exist. It's almost impossible for me to really interact in some business environments without somebody trying to sell me personal protection equipment. If you would have looked at my interactions with people prior to what's taking place right now, there's not a world in which somebody would have interacted trying to sell me personal protection equipment. That's a changing expectation. Well, as consumers, when we walk into stores, we now see disposable face masks being given out to consumers. We see hand sanitizing stations as regular expectations. We see Lysol wipes sold out across many places across the world. We see disposable gloves on the hands of many people that we interact with. And these are now things that have become commonplace in what we expect from businesses. One of the fourth pictures that you see is the rise of home fitness equipment. The exercise industry was really on a tear throughout 2019, but then 2020 strikes, everybody comes home, and now what you see is the dollar shifting from being outside in the world to really being inside, to making your home your sanctuary. The technology that has developed over time with home workout equipment is really phenomenal. What you see here on the screen is a Peloton bike, which has grown tremendous market share over time, but then you have the mirror workout equipment. You see the fight camp boxing equipment. Just a few examples of companies that have taken really a commanding presence in our homes over the past several months. And then finally, there's a shift in the gig economy. It's produced many roles for people who provided services within Uber and Lyft, but you have Uber Eats, you have DoorDash, you have Grubhub, you have Instacart, grocery delivery services, all that have been essential businesses. And what you see is that these businesses collectively have all seen tremendous growth throughout the 2020 time period. But what does all of this mean for businesses going forward into 2020? Well, it means that we have an obligation to listen to our customers and to our consumers. We have an obligation to find new ways to meet their expectations. We need to find out where to meet them in the place where they feel most comfortable spending their time and spending their money within our organizations. Therefore, there are some general new rules of engagement, I'd like to say, which really categorizes a couple things that show how we are speeding up things throughout the marketplace. Rule number one, contactless shopping. Companies are investing heavily in mobile payment technologies to avoid unnecessary interaction. Companies are investing heavily in digital shopping solutions to allow for a seamless transaction from brick and mortar to then transition into the digital marketplace. I often highlight this as one of the big examples of how things have changed throughout 2020, but curbside delivery is something that is very important to so many different industries, and the scale and the growth of this has been phenomenal over the past 7 months. There's a research firm called Inmar that published a study that said in January of 2020, 39% of consumers had experimented with online grocery delivery, services bringing groceries to your house. By May of 2020, so 4 to 5 months later, that number had ballooned to 80% of consumers then experienced with what online grocery deliveries would look like. Another element is appointment shopping. Appointment shopping is now offered in more and more apparel retailers all around the world. Pre-scheduled shopping appointments that allow retailers to apply principles of safety in their interactions with the consumers. That's what's most important. So they're able to offer not only a better customer experience that really prioritizes safety, but they're able to do it in an uncrowded shopping environment. Retailers can then limit how many people are inside of their shops, which makes it safer for everybody. Rule number two, fewer stores, higher conversions. The role of the store remains very important, and ship from store capabilities honestly saved so many companies throughout the first and the second quarter of 2020. But you can't deny the fact that foot traffic going out through the balance of 2020 is going to continue to be challenged. But as a result of this, businesses have presented with a unique way to be able to engage consumers in a different way. The conversion metrics of brick and mortar stores are skyrocketing for many retailers because the shopper that is coming into your establishment is really there on a mission. There are fewer and fewer people who are going to malls to browse on a Saturday afternoon to just look around. But those who are venturing out into malls represent consumers that are willing to buy, right? They have an intent to purchase. So we'll continue to see this trend of stores closing as companies use the COVID crisis as a way to really provide themselves with some cover to get their balance sheets a little bit more clear. So right sizing their store fleets, closing the unprofitable stores. But from a business perspective, this was already happening. We've been reading for years the amount of businesses that have been closing their retail footprints. And so what's taking place currently in 2020 has really just provided businesses the opportunity to act quickly. And then brands need to emotionally connect with consumers, right? During times of crisis and concern, customers have a heightened level of sensitivity. Therefore, their engagement with your brand has a very high potential for a positive outcome if all goes well. But it also increases the potential for a negative outcome if they don't feel that their needs are being met. And brands can really focus on several different ways to really connect emotionally with their customers. Number one, they can focus on the services that they provide. Make the shopping experience, both in-store and online, feel very personal. It's okay to reach out to your customers and engage them to understand what they're going through right now. It's not a time to really market to them during those kind of interactions, but you can learn so much from your consumers by just engaging them on the things that they're going through, right? What's taking place in their current environment. Work to shift your customers from a brick and mortar environment to a digital environment. Invest in the digital capabilities that really meet the customer where they're interested in shopping. Similarly, turn inward and find the ways to communicate differently and provide customer service to your employees. Your employees are the greatest brand ambassadors that you'll ever have. And so when you care for them, it pays off in the long run in how they're going to take care of your customers. Number two is that brands can really focus on the messages that they're communicating to consumers. Put the marketing team in the driver's seat. Right? The choice for the marketing team here is really simple. What you want to do is to tug at the heartstrings. Be the brand that has been chosen because of what you did when it mattered the most. Take a stance, show the world who you are, because how you act in times of struggle define what your legacy is going to be in the mind of your consumers. Right? So thus taking the expectations for years to come and turning them into a positive environment. And then number three, lean into sustainability. Lean into environmentally friendly practices to improve business models. Lean into causes and campaigns that matter to your target consumer. Be active in the community and show that you care about all the things that the customers are going through, because everybody's being impacted by the world around them. The picture that you see on your screen here is of a tag inside of a pair of Patagonia shoes. Patagonia is a tremendous outdoor brand that takes numerous stances as it relates to environmental issues and social issues. And they released a limited run of shorts with this tag that said, "Vote the expletive out," which is really geared towards politicians that were anti-environmental policies. And so this is just an example of knowing who your customer is, targeting messages that resonate with them, and really taking a stand. Because listen, we can't stop disruptions from taking place. But what we can do is we can use a disruptive environment to improve our businesses. We can listen to our consumers. We can listen to our employees. We can come out of this with stronger business models, and we can improve the experiences really that lead to the perceptions that deliver positive expectations for our consumers for time to come. And so with that, I say thank you, and it was very nice to spend some time with you today.